Well, welcome to another episode of From There to Here. I'm your host, Lawrence Temple Jr. Today we're doing something we haven't done. This is the second time talking to the same guest, but on a somewhat different angle. This is Phebe Fuqua, who has been a guest of ours before, but she is the first of a series we're doing called Women's Work, about women succeeding in different areas of business or accomplishment that haven't always had a lot of women in these circles, and even today don't. And so we're going to talk to Ms. Fuqua just about her experiences in her business and in the world of work and achievement, period, from the standpoint of a woman. All right. Phebe, hello again and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
As I did before, because everyone didn't see the previous, if you had to boil down what you are, who you are in a few moments, like on an elevator speech, what would you say?
Okay. I am a business professional woman who wears several hats. So I'm a business and a political strategist. I also do design construction consulting. So I wear a lot of hats and I have a lot of moving parts. And my hobby is in my pastime, I do aviation. So I'm an aviator, and I pour into a lot of youth on the aviation side. So that's a short spiel.
Now, that is a diverse set of interests. That's a mix I don't think I've heard anyone have before. I could probably, there's a show's worth of talking about each one of those things. To the person, what would be your advice, generally speaking, to a person? It could be a woman, it could be anyone going into a field or an endeavor where they don't see a lot of people that look like them. Whether it's a woman going to a male-dominated field, it could be a minority going into an area where there aren't very many minorities. Any way you want to do that. If they kind of leaned on you for some advice about going into a realm where they are the only one, what would you say?
That's been my life, all my life. I have been either had a desire to have a hobby where I was the only female. Obviously, my profession is only a handful of us as far as with females. Going into undergrad, actually moving even further back from there. In high school, I was a part of an academy called Design and Manufacturing Technology because I had a desire for architecture engineering. But I also wanted to do business, and I had an interest in aviation and an interest in politics. So all these moving parts, what I would tell someone, because all of those settings, it was only either I was one of another female and I was sometimes the only Black person. I went to historically Black college, so it was a lot of, you would think there was a lot of Black students in architecture. There was a lot of other, ethnicities in there as well. So majority sometimes. Wow. So it was surprising for me because I thought I was going to be surrounded by people who looked like me, but it wasn't. It was very diverse. I had to make sure, because I was Black, they say, oh, you have to work 10 times as hard. I was a female also. And it was like, why are you here? Why do you want to do this? Because I have a passion and I want to do it. So I learned to adapt to how men operate and how other ethnicities operate. And you have to understand and respect everybody's role. I'm not one who says a female can do everything a man can do. Absolutely not, because I never dethrone a king. He has his role. He has his purpose. It goes back to the biblical purpose. God created a man, and he also created a woman to help carry on the vision. So I feel like my role, even though I love things that men that are mostly male dominant, I don't ever shy down and say, oh, we can do it better. Absolutely not. We were conditioned differently. And I'm okay. I respect a man in his place. And I also encourage women to respect the men in their place. So I've always been that oddball in various settings because they're like, come on, Phebe. No, I own myself, and I own, yes, I'm a strong Black woman, and I can very capable of doing just as much, but I never ever say that a man can do this, that, do more, whatever. We can be equal in some states or some situations, but at the same time, you're not going to see me lift certain things or do certain things because that's something that he can do. I just respect people in their space. That's, yeah. I know it may sound different than what most women are like, oh, what women? No, we all have our place. And that's why God designed us how we are.
Now that is a unique take, and not unique as in I've never heard it, but for an accomplished woman who is doing things and leading things and heading things, to still have that mentality that we all have our role. That's a different and unique take, um, that I respect. And obviously it's working because of the successes that you're having. I'm really curious about what you talked about, how even in high school, you liked all these different things where you were the only one. And I think I brought this up before. As someone who worked in education, I would see people shy away from something they liked because they didn't see anyone who looked like them. They wouldn't take the honors class because the friends from their neighborhood or who rode their bus aren't in that class, or and on and on, particularly with young people. I guess it's my two questions. Why do you think, maybe it's obvious, but still, why do you think we as whatever type of person you're talking about, we won't go into these why do you think we won't go into these unusual areas? And what is your advice for that younger person, that they might be middle high school. They know they want something, but they're afraid because they don't see them. So why do we do that? And what would be your advice to that, particularly that younger person?
So a lot of times it's because we're so comfortable with it and we're scared. We're so scared of what if I don't fit in? Because rejection is real. Rejection it stunts a lot of people in their progress in life, and then they make all these excuses. I was raised in a household where excuses was not even like a part of our vocabulary, and if you did, it was like you really have to push forward. Why are you doing that? Oh, because they don't want to, or that you're worried about what people would think. And so I would just encourage people, because I was raised where you think 10 years ahead. You have to look at your future. A lot of these people, they're having fun now, but then later on, they're going to be suffering. Okay. And so I was thinking about something I would say is like, stop window shopping your calling and purchasing your excuse, because you're just window shopping. You're calling. And so
whoa, don't talk anymore. I need to rewind and say that again. I don't want people to miss that, and I need to catch that again. Please say that again.
Yes, stop window shopping your calling. So that's where your times where you're just like, well, I think I want to do this. Oh, I like that. I don't know. And then you're purchasing the excuse of, I can't do it. I'm the only one. I don't know. Well, they said women really don't belong here. So, and then they told me, and this is me in architecture school. Well, that design really isn't, it's too emotional. Y'all women are so emotional. Or even when it comes to being a strategist in the political sector, or sometimes even in the business sector, they don't like to have, most of the times is don't want women to lead because we are emotional beings. We think outside the box. When men compartmentalize, and a lot of times women, we could do a whole bunch of things, and then we can compartmentalize as well, but at the same time, a lot of moving parts, and we lead with emotions at sometimes. So when you are window shopping your calling and and you're purchasing the excuse, you stunt your growth. Then you're stuck in a place of there. You're just like, well, you see where generational I really wanted to do this. And then we birth a new generation of just not, people say, oh, generational curse of didn't do or poverty, but no, we continue to birth a generation of ignorance because it's a lack of knowledge of just trying to keep purchasing these excuses when we stop that and literally shift our mindset, then we can literally walk in our purpose in life. And then we can be the first of this or another one who succeed, another one who impacts lives. And I live by the motto, inspire to change and impact to make a difference, because you have to. That's the only way that you can be able to stop window shopping and start purchasing your goals and start pursuing those things. So that's what I would tell someone, is stop making excuses. Just go for it. Don't worry about everybody else. Starve your distractions and feed your focus. Just keep going. That's what you need to do. Just focus, and I promise you it'll pay off. It's lonely. It's sad sometimes, but it's worth it. It's lonely at times. It really is.
Goodness gracious, you just keep saying thing after thing that I just want to take off on. When you mention, first of all, I love the whole analogy about the window shopping of what's important, not really making a decision, and what you're buying is an excuse that stops you from going any farther. I love the clarity of that. Would you talk about the aspect of loneliness as it pertains to success? Could you talk about that part of having to walk some solitary roads, and about the temptation to want to be with everybody, but then give up on your goals and purpose?
So the lonely road, many times I had to redirect how I thought, because I'm like, man, I'm real lonely. Like, what happened to everybody when I was thriving? Because you have ups and downs in business. You have ups and downs as an entrepreneur. Here you have ups and downs in leadership. As you know, being a leader, sometimes it's you have to be isolated. And I heard an analogy about a rocket ship. And when the rocket ship goes off, the boosters fall. Mm-hmm. It's okay. And I really had to dive into that over and over, like, why? And I love aviation. So that's something that I'm really connected to when it comes to that. And so when God had to really deal with me about the boosters. So I had to redirect my mind, like, man, it's lonely. Oh, you know what? They were boosters. Thank you, God, for the boosters. So now in this next phase, since I'm going higher, who else are my boosters? And then I have to reevaluate new people in my circle. I hate when people, let me stop saying hate. I strongly dislike, it's the same thing as hate if you look it up. But this sounds a little bit more gentle. But I don't like when people say no new friends or no new people. Why? Mm-hmm. Because you need new people. The higher that I went, even in my professional career, yes, I found friends. I'm like, oh my goodness, because they can relate in the season that I'm in. And I had to be mindful of what attached to me. Just because they support me doesn't mean that I'm like, ooh, they're friends, they're great. No, you have to have discernment, and you have to be mindful, because a python can wrap around you and seem very kind, but what is wrapping around to suck the life out of you. So you have to be mindful of who's around you, who's attached to you. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. Let them attach. Let them be. Sometimes they need to attach to be those boosters to elevate you to the next level, but also be mindful of how are they attached to you? Are they there to kill you in this season? Or whatever the case may be. And if it does kill you in that season, it's okay, because it's a learning lesson. There are many times in my career, I was sucked the life out of, killed. And I'm like, man, whoa. And I felt horrible. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I had to redirect my mind. Okay, it felt like I was in a fiery furnace. But instead of feeling like I was burnt, I was just being fireproof and developed, because many times in fire, it's a good and bad thing. You when you throw things in fire, sometimes it destroys you, but then also sometimes it refines you and it develops you. So I always try to redirect my thinking. And sometimes it annoys people around me because, like, Phoebe, you always thinking good. I have to, because if not, I would die internally and mentally, and I have to keep going. So it's all about how you look at it.
When you mentioned the boosters and the separation of people and things, I wonder if you would touch on this. So seems like you're mentioning different stages, different phases of life that people pass through, either that your business passes through or that you pass through. How does a person who's been through something bad, maybe a terrible relationship, divorce, abuse, health things, how do they move to that next thing without the damage stifling them or making them feel like, because I went through this thing, I I'm less than what I used to be now, so I don't have enough for the next thing anymore, because that I'm less than now because of what I went through. If what I'm saying makes sense, how
It
does the person
does.
does it? How do you not take that to the next thing and feel like I'm less than because I went through that?
Ooh, that was a mouthful. So it's wow, because that's me.
Yeah.
I went through good, bad, health, scars, shattered pieces. Um, I used to say, you know what? I'm just gonna forget it, throw it away, keep it moving. I went through having a marriage and then a public divorce. I went through being extremely healthy to being publicly torn health wise. I went through highs and lows in business, highs and lows in life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel ashamed. I feel this. I feel like a failure. And then I was like, you know what? God had to deal with me. I always commune with God. I always have to literally ask God to order my steps, or because we always focus on the ordered step parts, but sometimes He stops us just as well as He orders my steps, just as well as He stopped me in my steps to check me. And
Okay.
many times we have to know that we are enough despite how it looks. Like I said earlier, I went to school for architecture engineering. So design is a part of me. And I learned one thing in design: shattered pieces bring the most beautiful masterpieces when you have the right master, who is the master designer. And we have to understand that whoever in life, we are here for a purpose. So despite whatever it is, I have scars from health. And sometimes people are like, oh, what happened to you? What's that? Why do you do this? I'm like, oh, I used to get so like, oh my gosh, so embarrassed. But I was like, you know what? When you own it, you are the captain of the narrative. So instead of someone trying to point their finger, hey, I thought you was married. Hey, are all those, what happened? What, you're a single person, oh, I thought you was, with this person, or I thought you did this, or what happened to your business, or what happened to, this particular contract, or what happened to you here, there. But everybody wants to point fingers. But when you own it and you say, listen, yes, this absolutely happened, but this was just a test. Oh yeah, I was sick. Oh, this scar. Oh, this came from this. And then that changes their mindset. Like, oh,
Okay.
because everything that's broken can be salvageable. In design, the most chaotic, broken pieces and shattered pieces, when you have the right vision and you are connected to the right source, you can make a beautiful masterpiece. So we've heard it so many times, people telling their stories about their life and they're making millions because they redirected shattered pieces and made it into a masterpiece. So that's what I would tell somebody: own it. It's okay. It happened. Because if we all sat around and told our story, we'd all be crying like, ooh, man, I thought my pieces were shattered. I just have just a little crack compared to others. even though someone's crack might be devastating, but
Mm-hmm.
some other people have shattered pieces. We all have shattered pieces in our lives. We are the captain of the narrative, and we just make it seem like a masterpiece. So I own it. I own everything that I've been through in life and just say, yeah, you want to see my masterpiece? Oh, this is what this looks like. You have to, because it keeps your mind at peace. At least it helps me keep
Yeah.
my mind at peace. Yeah.
I love the owning it, you said, because a lot of people don't know. I won't go with everything, but I know your cracks and pieces of your story, a lot of them were potentially fatal, or like either to your actual
Yeah.
life, right? Or to your business or whatever. So any one of these multiple things could have been a game ender, but yet
Absolutely.
you're putting it as part of your story. Um, you've mentioned that you have these diverse interests, just off the top of my head of things you've said, a bit the business world, consulting and things, politics, mentoring, flight, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to the person? Because I know of some people that maybe are a bit paralyzed because they like a diverse number of things, and they sometimes are kind of frozen, not knowing which thing to do because they like 7 things and they're pretty good at 7 things. How have you handled the fact that you are interested in multiple things? How did you juggle, balance, order that part of
Mm-hmm.
you?
So what I've learned to do is I like to write things down. And sometimes people don't like to write things down. They just like to go with the flow.
Okay.
But you still have to process some type of system, right? And in some type of flow. And so that's what I do. I like a lot of different things, and I'm pretty good at all of them. But what I do is surround myself so I can be effective and don't drop the ball, because I do have obligations with each one of those things. Especially on my give back on the nonprofit or just the community side. I like to make sure that I have some type of system in place to have people surrounding me who I can continue to pour in, and they help me as well. So you bounce off of people and you surround yourself by other people who have that same interest, and they'll help carry you on, because they're having a lot of interest and having your hands in a lot. You can't do it all by yourself. You have to have somebody else, because we're all better when we're connected with somebody else.
See, okay,
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah, because it seems with some people it seems like being good at a lot of things is almost a curse because it makes them
Yeah.
unable to decide to move in any area. In a little time we have left, this is awesome. I wanted this to be a power pack, narrow time frame, and this is perfect. A couple other things. How have you dealt with moving in professional circles, but as a female, and then being, for lack of a better word, hit on by clients or people you're supposed to be working with? That aspect, which is real life. How, because I know again of women who have shied away from certain things because of that aspect. How have you dealt with that, or slash, how would you advise women in that, with that situation?
It used to frustrate me early on in my career, because I'm like, man, can I just have a conversation? Because I'm by nature, I'm very nice.
Okay.
And I'm not one, like some females in my profession are very standoffish, hold your head up, don't talk to me, blah, 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 blah. And they're very attractive, but they have this gutter attitude. And I'm not like that. I'll talk and communicate, but it can come off to some people, oh, she's being nice, so let me try to hit on her. And then I switch and be like, listen, don't mess I always tell people my piece is non-negotiable and my bags are non-negotiable. Like, don't mess with my bags. Like, don't bother my money, nothing like that. I have been in situations where closing on a contract, and the guy's there, and then end up, I'm like, oh, okay, so you're in business with somebody else, or it might be their spouse or whatever. Various situations where they're like, oh no, she's too pretty, you can't work with her. Or it's been situations where, guys have come to me and say, hey, I have some business questions. And I'm like, okay, great, wonderful. To only, oh, I really want to take you out. You wasting my time. So there has been situations like that, situations where even I've been in a horrible situation where it's like, whoa, I have to defend myself. And it's hard sometimes when you are attractive, or a lot of people have interest in you, and you're still trying to handle your business.
Yeah.
So there has been times where I had to have other men to be a proxy for me, to help close on certain things, who has my best interest. That was the case for a period of time. And then sometimes I'm like, man, you can't close on it because the hidden agenda, and there are women who sleep their way. I don't. I use my brain, and that's it, because I've seen that happen, and it's not healthy. And on the other end too, men have done it to use their body to get to where they want to, and it's a temporary fix for what they're trying to do. And I've learned a long time ago, early on, like, wow, watching people get to where they are, and I'm like, wow, what happened to them? They got tired of them, so on to the next.
Oh wow.
And when you, yeah, and it's real. Especially when you work really close in leadership, or just various things in various settings, you see it all the time. And I've always learned that, you know what, I'm never going to be there, never had a desire to do that, but I always use my mind, and it ruffles feathers, but at the same time, my integrity holds, my integrity stays, because but it happens, and it's frustrating.
But I guess, but you
Yeah.
have to make that decision that you're going to press on for the bag and for whatever else,
Yeah,
despite of that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Got that. Oh, hold on. A tech thing happened. Don't go anywhere. Stand
Okay.
by.
No problem.
But we're here. Let's see. I think that's it. There you go. Okay. And that's really good, because I just had a conversation with a young lady in business, wrote a book, doing all these things. A young woman, like not even 30, and she listened to me episode after episode of guys hitting on her and in so-called business situations, and some pretty rude stuff. So I wanted to bring that up because I know that is real life. The last thing I want to ask you is, I'll say a word, because you've mentioned it several times. I believe it's important to you. So I'll say the word. I want you to tell me what it means to you. The word community, because I know that you care a lot about mentoring and reaching out and charitable things. So when I just throw the word community at you, what comes to mind when I say it?
When I think of that, I think of expanding what's in the inside of you. So when we think of the community, I think of, whatever's inside of you, you're pouring it out, whether that's your skill set, whether it's helping somebody not do the same mistakes that you've done before. It's a healing, and it's a nurturing. That's what I think of with the community, how it should be formed. And so when you do that, it thrives and it produces life. So when you're healing and nurturing something, and you're pouring into it, it can't help but produce life. But when you don't do that, it produces a stagnant, and it's dry, and you have weeds everywhere, and it's just like people are zombies and stuck. But yes, you're pouring in, you're healing, and you're nurturing. That's what I think of when I think of community.
Got that. And that's evident from the things you talk about and things we can see you involved in. I noticed if this is aired during the month of February, there's the Cult of You photo exhibit here done by Kenneth Grant Inspirations, and I know you and your family were pictured in it. And I encourage people to go and to take a look at that incredible event that happens every year. So, lastly, could you talk to us about your experience being a part of that exhibition?
It's nice. It was awesome. They do an amazing job at really highlighting and showcasing a lot of Blacks in our community. Mine was called Singled Out, and that was a part of just telling the story of how being a single parent or a co-parent in a society, and yet I've accomplished a lot. I'm an entrepreneur. I've done a lot of things in the community.
Okay.
And it talked about my health challenges and all of that stuff, but yet I still thrive and still do a lot with my children. And it says, it gave some statistics about how sometimes single parents or co-parents they feel stuck, but you can still be accomplished and still do things. It's all about your mindset. And it gave my quote, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And so it highlighted the 90% of the things I've done. So I definitely encourage people to go out and look at the exhibit. It's awesome. They have it there off of International, and then they have another one at the Yvonne Scarlett Golden building. So it's awesome.
That's right. Well, thank you, Phebe, so much again for this. And again, this is part of our series with 3 other women called Women's Work, and we'll be putting that out here in a little bit. But again, thank you again for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I definitely enjoyed it. And this is awesome. What you're doing is highlighting women in business. So thank you very much.